right, folks are coming in. Hello, welcome everyone. So excited to see the people. I do have to say, I like this platform because I get to see people live. People like Neil Colway or Dave Hall or Todd Amundsen. And other people, I will also call your name if you turn your cam on, which is also maybe a reason to not turn your cam on because I won't call your name.
Everyone's just gonna stop, yeah.
Exactly. Like, you mean if he won't call on me if I can though, let's see, like Anna. Well, Anna's like, she's connected to audio, so she can't hear me calling on her. Or Sam Day. Well, Sam, come on, Sam, turn on your cam. A lot of great, smart, wonderful people. Hello, welcome everyone. Hallie Gallinger. Hallie, I'm going to virtually introduce you to Wendy, both Portlanders. You guys need to meet.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm assuming Hallie has her audio. There she is.
Hey, Wendy.
Hi there. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Wishing we had more sun today, but hey, take it when we get it.
Yeah, well, I would complain saying that it's going to rain, but Greg Baker, who's in Vermont, is looking at 3 inches of snow outside of his window, so I'll take rain any day.
Totally.
Yeah, that's like building a snowman worth of snow. And
yes, it is sticky. It's sticky snow. Yeah.
That would shut down all of Portland 3 times over. Nice to see you, Marcus. Kim Levan, is that how you pronounce your last name? Kim?
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. And thanks for being a brave soul. Turn on the webcam. A bunch of crazy SEMers. Hello, Jeff Guild. You as well. Hello. Welcome. Bill Miller, thanks for your survey responses. As always, you always provide some deep thoughts. It's always great. And then we're going to get going here in just a moment. Pat Bradley from our team, who just turned on his cam, shared with me this morning the video of the bobcat that attacked this people in their driveway. And then the guy pulled it off his wife and then chucked it like across the yard, this bobcat. Like, at first he was like holding it in his hand, and I don't know how it didn't like claw his face off. Pat, if you could find that video and put it in the chat. Everyone needs to see this at their, do you have the chat ability?
We'll do. We'll share it out, yeah.
Okay. It's coming. This is just to make your day better. We've made a few people's days better already. Martin Lott.
Don't watch with children. There is swearing in it.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Dave. Yes, yeah, very good to call.
I thought you meant this webinar, and I was like, Chad, you didn't tell me about the swearing.
Not yet.
Throw down some language.
Yeah.
I bet they've heard the swearing before they've seen the bobcat image of attacking a human. So it's a toss-up.
Right. I'm gonna be the first. Are
we the victim, the bobcat, or the bobcat tosser? What are our roles here?
It's a complete non sequitur. Nothing to do with nothing, which is part of the beauty of it. That's half of what my job is, and most of the calls I'm on is just to distract and take the productivity down. But not today. Today we're going to get going. So again, I just want to call out to some lovely faces that I'm seeing again. Martin, nice to see you again. Congratulations on your big move. Taylor, hello, welcome. David Goldstein, nice to see you. As always, you're muted, by the way, somehow, but no, there you are. Susie, as a pleasure as always. I'll flip forward a couple of times because I want to mention maybe people that can. Well, let's get to it. But thank you all for joining. We're going to do a Mentimeter poll to get started. So let me do my screen share. And so your first question. So go to menti.com. If you haven't used Mentimeter, go to menti.com on your cell phone or on another browser window in your computer. Either one works. Don't use a flip phone, but go to menti.com and type in those 8 numbers, or that one single 8-digit number, depending on how you look at it. Look at it however you want to look at it. 72 97 13 25, menti.com. And so the icebreaker poll is name one awesome SEM related person at another firm/organization. And I'll go ahead and say too, you can't name me And you can't name my vest. This is not a person, so don't call out Chad's vest as a person. I think maybe Dave, it was you, or Mike Christensen, or somebody else was. This is an easy thing to point at to make fun of this vest, but all right. So seeing some cool, awesome people. There are some great people. Look at these. I see. Yeah, seen a couple Todd references, of course, because he's such a wonderful person. Wendy, yes. Jay Mullen, nice job at Goldfin. Shelley, Idaho Power, wonderful. John Wallner, the father of SEM, or godfather. A couple of Greg Baker call outs. Richard Hart, one of the brilliant people that I've gotten to know fortunate for a very long time. Peter Bassett, wonderful person. You'll hear from him in a few minutes here. Genevieve London, that's nice. Well done. Roland Risser, formerly from PG&E and then DOE, and now he's actually out of the Northwest. Lovely, I love this. This is great. Anna Kelly called out, Anna out of Colorado. Taylor called out, again, thanks for being here as well. This is great, nice little icebreaker. Okay, let's flip over to the core topic at hand, which is Perpetual SEM, I'm calling it, but we'll get into what that all means in a second. But to do that, our next question is, in your Mentimeter poll, so your Mentimeter should have refreshed on your cell phone or on your web browser, the poll should have refreshed to a new question. What is the longest engagement of an SEM customer in your main program? So if you work on one main program, what is it? If you're a consultant that works with many programs, pick the one you spend the most time. If you're an evaluator, the one you spend most time evaluating, etc. So what we're trying to get a handle on is how many years? And I did want to put in less than 1 year in case you have a program you just started, which is great. Give it a moment here. 26 responses. I think that's close to what we had in the last poll, so I'm going to call that good. Yeah, I wanted to call out. I know in preparing for this, looking at a lot of different, different research out there, different studies that are out there, like reports, looking at just like press releases on. So, for example, I saw an Energy Trust of Oregon industrial customer that had been in for 10 plus years. I think as of last year. Definitely know a lot of BC Hydro customers that have been in for over 10 years. Yeah, it's great. But then definitely seen a lot here in the, in the one, of course, many in the one mark, many in the 2 to 3, 4 to 5, and so on. But yeah, good distribution. So let's get to the topic. So Perpetual SEM, what are we talking about? The idea is something after the first program year. So if your program year, if your first ramp up of the customers and implementing SEM, you may do it in 6 months, you may do it in 24 months, or somewhere in between. 12 is a pretty common number, 18 months, pretty common, but definitely, again, there are some programs that are designed for 24 months, some are designed for less than 12. And so basically trying to get them up to speed, get them all those things implemented. So then after that, there's no real standard name for what you call that thing after that first program year. But basically, and also there's no standard of what that really is. So you would maybe set the standard for what's implemented in that first program year would align to the CE minimum elements. But after that, there's not a real standard, but again, we'll talk all about that here today. I've seen it called a few different things: continuous SEM, SEM continuation, some twists like that. Often just program administrators just call it, it's just still SEM. And so they don't try to get into a difference. They just say, you're in year 3 of our SEM program. So I just wanted to call it out in case you see different things out there in the market. We asked a question of some folks. I'm going to make this a little easier to read. Ask some questions of participants. The survey basically of what components had they deployed. And so I'll call out a few of these. One is energy management assessments to recalibrate and to re-energize. So recalibrate meaning if it's a measurement tool of your business practices, the level of energy's integration in your business practices, to do that on maybe every 2 years or every year or whatever the cadence may be, but to basically kind of remeasure, but also to kind of remotivate people and to say, okay, here's where we stand. Let's kind of like, there's some things have shifted, we've backslid, or we've really advanced. What are our next goals? And so using that as a technique. The next one would be like an annual kind of a workshop session with the customers to then prioritize future workshops. And so if you said, okay, our team has developed these 10 possible workshop topics or 15 that we could potentially do this year, what would you like to have covered in the next 6 or so workshops we would do in this following year? And let them choose and let them sticky note it or whatever you'd want to do to have them vote on it. Next would be like an annual organization energy plan. So supporting customers to implement these. These would be like a document that could be, a 6-page document. Doesn't have to be like a 80-page tome, but something that kind of captures where they are, what they've accomplished in the last year, and what they plan to do in the next year. Both at a kind of projects they may be planning to tick off, but also organizational kind of goals they may have, or top line types of savings they want to achieve, or whatever. But it could be a number of things that they want to do, things that they want to implement at their site. Doing deeper energy scans / treasure hunts is another one that people often do. So basically finding new opportunities. And definitely, as we've seen, a common phrase we've heard is that when people go in, they think all their low-hanging fruit's exhausted, but then the more they get into SEM, the more they realize they can see more and more low-hanging fruit. And so having a really targeted approach with another energy scan or treasure hunt to find more in their very dynamic facilities or buildings. 50001 Ready and or ISO 50001 has been used and is being used in some programs. We'll go into that a little bit here. GHGs and or decarbonization as a topic is definitely something that's starting to be done or starting soon, you can see here. SOP, standard operating procedures, and or focus on more advanced kind of operations and maintenance. And so where you're going in and doing things that are a bit more invasive in their process, or trying to understand and push the ball a little farther on what they've been doing. Energy management information systems, or EMIS. So deploying these, so now you've basically built an in your first program year, you've got an organization ready to how to say that they get these practices in place. Now you can layer on EMIS or EMIS because you've got an organization ready to use it, right? So you doing an EMIS in a subsequent year can make good sense. You've got this organizational capacity and even demand for the data that would come out of that tool. And then last, like advanced employee engagement, also very commonly used component of SEM that would be used. So again, going deeper, having more advanced tools that you could then deploy across a larger swath of the organization. So these are some ideas that, again, I put to our group to comment on. So we'll go back to the poll, and which is, what other perpetual SEM techniques do you recommend? So I'm going to flip back to the slide, but this will be the question. So if you can go to menti.com, I'm going to go back to the slide so you can see the list here a second ago. But go to menti.com, use the code 72971325. Should be on your browser. If you haven't closed that, please. And but we'll flip back to this so you can see what we just showed you. So we talked about EMAs. We talked about annual workshop planning sessions. We talked about annual organizational energy plans, deeper scan / treasure hunts, 50001 Ready or ISO 50001, GHGs, SOPs or advanced O&M, EMIS or advanced employee engagement. What else? What have you seen deployed? So we're seeing some responses coming in. Other things you've seen deployed that you recommend? Oh, I've seen some good ones. Capturing avoided savings decay. Nice. Focusing on the savings that they've how to say it, implemented, but that they can definitely decay over time. That's a great point. Peer-to-peer calls, so grouping customers together, kind of extended the value of the cohort into smaller groups within these coaching calls. Let's see, SEM business practice techniques. Okay, yeah. Executive engagement, I love it. It's great, very important. Having a real firm strategy on how to do that is vital. Let's see, validation and sustainment of existing savings. Yeah, kind of tied to this point up here. Additional reporting. Yep, can be very good, very powerful. I think, again, I'd be want to call out, yeah, reporting with a purpose. Like, what's the point of the purpose? And then, what are you trying to do? And then using that, then having that report to support that. So then the annual energy plan could be basically kind of like somewhat of a look back report and a forward looking plan. It's going to drive more action, more momentum. Adding new members to energy team, that's great. Infusing new blood and so on. Informational training videos as a refresh. There's some resources out there that you can definitely point people to. There's other peer-to-peer calls, SEM alumni gatherings, that's great, an alumni program, ongoing monitoring. I'm gonna keep flipping down. New energy champions, that's great, kind of refreshing their team with the new champion, or at least thinking about backup energy champions if that's not a part of your program, but to get that kind of development in the people and resilience in that new role. Model maintenance, sister plant competitions, that's wonderful. For those of you who've not been in these webinars before, we take all these notes and we put them into the PowerPoint deck that we send out to everybody. So if you're frantically trying to write these all down, that's great. Please take notes however you'd like to, but we will share all these with you. Less reporting like that, that's good too. Outward facing goals, EMIS, it's great. Many treasure hunts focused on end uses like compressed air. Lovely, wonderful. These are great ideas. So let's go back to the deck, and we're going to have a couple of perspectives from a couple of members of the SEM leadership team. And those are from Peter Bassett and Walt Tennyson. We're going to have Peter go first. Peter, we did have that slide I was able to pull up. This is a slide that grounds, I guess I'd say, a lot of what EPS's work is in California and Nova Scotia. Peter, can you hear us?
Yep. Can you hear me, Chad?
Yep, perfectly.
Yeah, so looking at all the Mentimeter numbers there, I feel like I'm in kindergarten, probably, you know, so there's a lot of folks that have been doing this for a long time. This little wheel diagram in the center was what we created in Nova Scotia, Efficiency, Nova Scotia, out on the East Coast. We got to the end of year one, and the program said, well, we'd like to keep participants in the program, and let's come up with a strategy for multi-year engagement. So we came up with this 3-year model, where in year one, it's about laying the foundation. Year two, at the tail end of year one, we'd have some EMIS planning. And then in year two, they would implement that. And that involved new sub-metering, new data collection and reporting in the plant that would tie to operational controls. So support right in the heart of the equipment to bring better plant visibility around energy and dive deeper on operational control. And year three was really to cement the NMIS as a defined system for the participants, get to 50,001 recognition, 50,001 ready, and essentially drive people through this 3-year vision. We've got, you know, one participant now popping into year 4, and this is, I would say, been working very well. To talk about California, which probably many of you are aware of, they came out with a cycle 1 design guide for participants in the first 2 years, then a cycle 2, which is a year 3, 4, and then a cycle 3, which has not yet been written. But essentially in cycle 1, the first 2 years, there's basic SEM elements. There's the introduction of EMIS, and also there were options for people to implement 50,001 ready. And I do see a comment from Richard about EMIS, what's it mean? You know, I recognize it means many things out there right now. In the cycle 2 design guide for California, they referenced the EMIS definition to a document that had been developed by Natural Resources Canada. And so it's EMIS guidebook. And maybe we'll send out a link after this but essentially it defines EMIS as everything from the meters, data capture, data storage, reporting, and the use of the information by the organization to drive improvement. It's not defined as a software, just a software. It's really this whole structure. And in many cases, EMIS could be implemented using the existing, say, industrial facilities process control system or process information management system, or it could be embedded within a building automation system. So there's no real precondition to it's got to be a third-party software concept, but it could be a third-party software concept. So long and short, I think this concept of building a base structure, getting into more advanced data-driven energy management, and then also really solidifying the management system is certainly been the heart of what we've been trying to do thus far.
That's great. Peter, thank you so much. And again, Peter's done a lot of amazing things for a long time with this company, but definitely between Nova Scotia and California, you see a lot of the best practices, I guess I'd say, espoused by what he and his team do, done in those areas. And yeah, and again, I guess I'd say, yeah, EMIS can be a perfect, not perfect tool. It can be a great tool to deploy and to kind of, like I said, build on this platform, this foundation you've already built with SEM, that you can then kind of accelerate that with more and better data. So that's great. Now we'll shift to Walt Tunnison. Walt, are you there? Walt is with the US EPA. Here's a couple of other perspectives. I put some of your perspectives, Walt, into 2 slides. So this is the first talking about recognition. Welcome, Walt. And also, by the way, you can see in Walt's background, if you see him come up, Happy Earth Day. I haven't said this. So yeah, Walt, if you want to make any Earth Day comments, go for that as well.
Happy Earth Day. And, big news for those of us in the energy and climate world today, with some exciting goals that we can all help contribute to. But one of the thoughts I just wanted to bring out was using outside resources to help maintain the focus on energy management with your customers. And I think it's important to remember that there are a lot of other entities out there. There's others essentially like feedback loops that you can get your customers connected with that will help support their continued focus on energy efficiency. And that may even be within their own companies. Just simply getting your customer to making sure that they're tied into whether if they're in a big multinational company, are they part of the sustainability program? Does the sustainability program know that they just went through this great SEM program? There's also national recognition programs. I manage the Energy Star industry program. We have some goal-oriented recognition programs that some SEM programs are using to help keep their customers focused on continuous improvement because it sets a prize. I think using things like pursuing the ISO standard or ISO ready, that's another milestone you can set as a goal for your customers to just, again, keep them focused. In Canada, you have the SIPEC leadership program. There's other ones too. A lot of trade associations have award programs. I'm seeing a few states even offer sort of best energy programs. So these things are out there and they set a goal for your customer to pursue, and SEM should help them get there. Plus, it's also something that you can find out whether or not they achieve. So it gives you information back in terms of whether your customers are successful. And then you can, of course, leverage that when you're doing outreach to other customers. Associations often have energy programs. I know if you're in the Pacific Northwest and you work with food processors, they've got a really active energy group just in that association. Other national associations do as well. There's partnership programs, Energy Star, there's the Energy Star Industrial Program you can refer your partners to. There's the Better Buildings Program at DOE. I think we're going to start to see more local programs growing up in certain areas of SEM alumni and other, as we see a greater focus on energy management and climate, maybe within cities. So, tying people into that is another opportunity. So, these are things I think that are great opportunities that aren't always been, haven't always been leveraged as much by SEM program implementers or program sponsors, partly because maybe you don't offer those things, but they're definitely things that you can take advantage of. So, another easy one too is, refer people to AEE. If you've got someone who's a real champion on this, see whether or not they want to pursue getting a CEM and get them tied into that network. So there's a lot of these things out there, and I think probably many of you are familiar with them, but there's definitely a role they can play in helping to support the continuous improvement of these energy programs going forward. And I'll leave it with that.
Thanks, Walt. That's great. And definitely, Walt had some wonderful ideas, and he and I were chatting yesterday, and I was like, we got to capture a lot of this gold here. I think a key word that Walt said, I think to kind of guiding his entire contribution here is like leveraging. So leveraging things that are already out there, and there are a ton of things, and not all things may make sense, but I guess I'd say chipping away at it. 1 year just trying out. So okay, we're gonna look at encouraging people, informing them about CEM training or building operator certification, BOC training, or looking at, or maybe incentivizing that. If that's something within your program to do, you can incentivize up to $500 or $1,000 for participants in your program to do. I know on those 2 certifications alone, I know a number of different programs that have incentives available for their customers that do want to pursue those. Like for an energy champion at their site to pursue those. And so that can be a very powerful one. You can see some other ones here as well. One of my favorites you can see at the top of this, and again, Walt had mentioned alumni/networking groups. Energy Trust of Oregon, a long time ago, Kim Crossman started, when she was there, started these Breakfast of Champions. I think there's roughly every 3 to 6 months convening folks for breakfast, bringing them in for not a lot of money, and they can convene and having speakers on different topics, and having them network and kind of continue that positive momentum that they had started in that first program year.
Yeah, and also mentioned in New England, we've been working with our EPA New England person to help establish a energy manager network in New England, and certainly open to working with other parts of the country on that as well. Because when you get people coming out of these cohorts, they're usually pretty psyched, they're pretty usually charged up. And if you can maintain that momentum by keeping people part of another network, it goes a long way in terms of keeping people's focus on energy. Plus, it shows their management that person is tied into something broader. And that shows that this whole area of energy management is important. It's not just a one and done project, that really it's part of an ongoing thing, and that this person's part of an ongoing network of people that are focused on this.
Well, that's brilliant. I think, and again, it's tied into when we did the poll a few minutes ago about people's ideas on what they had done, and executive engagement was one of them. This ties to Walt's point. I know, if we go back to this slide here previously about these different conferences and awards, finding a reason to get your executive sponsor to go to a conference, get an award. They're going to be really rallied around what's going on with your energy efforts. Then, it could be your plant manager, or it could be, again, some other form of executive sponsor. And so if they're, or a VP of whatever, if they're playing some kind of role, if it's a role like that, if you're being considered for, or a finalist for, or actually winning of an award from, from a federal agency in the US and Canada, or even again, like at a state or provincial level, those are all wonderful ways to really get people bought in, get executives bought in, because of course they often love that stuff. That's a big part of what their job is, to help position their organizations in the market. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Walt. This is perfect. So let's get into a little more on some of the theory behind this. And now I want to kind of talk about reasons not to do perpetual SEM. And again, I'm calling perpetual SEM again, as a kind of a placeholder. Please don't use perpetual SEM. I think it's probably confusing in the market. So I'll just go ahead and put that caveat out there. Here's a few arguments I've heard over the years about why SEM shouldn't happen after the first program year. And this first one, SEM is common sense. Definitely have heard this, when it comes time to evaluation, if your program wasn't properly designed for evaluability, such that is to say, if you haven't surveyed your participants when you come into it, And then if you haven't surveyed them ahead of time to understand what their kind of current state is coming in, then an evaluator comes along years later and says, hey, would you have done this program anyways would you have done SEM anyways without this program? And they say, yeah, it makes sense. I would have done it eventually. And they say, oh, well, free rider, or they shouldn't be included, or whatever. It's common sense. It shouldn't be a part of the thing. It's like, well, yes, and I'll not to poke holes in that, but I guess I'd say that's a reason to establish that data collection at the beginning, because while it is common sense, I would say it's still something that's always deprioritized, or virtually always deprioritized for most organizations. And that kind of ties a second point there. The other two, if SEM is culture change, then eventually there should be change. Like we should get there, wherever there is. And then tied to that, the bottom box here is an SEM, a market transformation program. And that's definitely how I would say SEM, at least in the Northwest, started. And I know like in Wisconsin, where John works, they focus on energy. They've been doing SEM for a long time. SEM has been happening in a lot of different places in a lot of different ways. But many folks had kind of looked at it as like, there's got to be a transformation. Something changes, and then when it's done. When are we finished? And so I'll get into that in a moment. But before I do that, I did want to call out a market adoption curve. So you may remember this if you're not familiar with market adoption curves. On our webinar, this last the 2030 webinar we did this last late summer fall, where we had John Wallner and formerly from NIA and Kim Crossman, formerly from Energy Trust of Oregon. Both wildly brilliant people, and again, thanks to both of them for participating, contributing to all that we do. But the idea for market adoption curve is this little natural baseline here is what this thing is. This would be basically that if you're selling iPhones or compact fluorescent, or I guess LED lights, I'm a little dated on my stories here, but that there's a market adoption curve. There's early adopters, and then things accelerate to the point where essentially my mom has them, right? My mom has an iPhone, my mom has LED light bulbs. It's like a mass market thing, right? So the idea then is that in market transformation is that there's market transformation organizations like NIA or others that play a role accelerating things from early adopting to like to some point here to the early majority, late majority. Some people see utility programs as playing a role in that, and I think it's a pretty good way to think about it as well. So maybe a NIA type of organization may get LED light bulbs off the ground. A utility program has incentives to kind of play a role up here to accelerate it. And then once it becomes mass market where everyone's just doing it, you don't need a utility program anymore, then it's just considered that's a natural baseline. Or again, even where codes and standards come in play and really kind of accelerate it that way. So I know this thinking, and I would say I kind of studied under John Wallner and Sergio Diaz, again, another brilliant person. And I guess I'd say kind of learned under them for a long time, thinking about, okay, well, then how does SEM fit in this? And then I spent more time with Kim Crossman and kind of realized like, well, actually, I'm not sure this is kind of apples and oranges, like organizational application of things, of practices is not the same as like widgets bought and deployed across a market. So we'll go into that. That's the teaser. So the idea again, SEM program in a first program year, again, that 6 to 24 month period, that in the course of that program year, they ramp up, they build these things, and then at the end of that, they built them. And so then they've, whatever, they're at this new state, this new level here at the end of that period. So then the question is like, okay, well, then what are they doing afterwards? They should maintain these practices afterwards. So that's the basic thinking. And if you even broke that down into actual years, so it could actually be post year 1, they should maintain, and post year 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. I will say too, at the end of this deck, there's some links to a couple of resources, including Energy Trust of Oregon's persistence study, which is wonderful. But there's also another study, a paper by the Northwest SEM Collaborative on effective useful life of SEM, which is really slick, and again, a good way to think about it. But the idea, at least, is if they would transform, then they should keep on doing these things, and their SEM practices should not degrade over time. So these are some of the reasons that people said not to do SEM. after beyond the first program year. I won't, so yeah, I guess I'd say cost effectiveness. There's like confusion about measure life program year. I won't call these things out just to save time, but I'd say most people didn't strongly agree with these topics. That is to say, there's not a lot of red, or the gray is pretty short. Most people generally disagreed with these reasons. So in other words, and so when I show you the other poll in a second, you'll see what this is about. So compared to the previous slide where they maintain these things over time, there is a thought that actually these practices and maybe the savings associated with them degrade over time, and so then if they degrade, there's like a backsliding, or however you want to look at it. So then a utility program, or I'm sorry, any kind of SEM program can basically address the backsliding by doing certain things to help maintain the savings, help maintain the practices. The other way to think about it as well is to not only address the backsliding, but also to continually improve. And so you've started this steep slope, ramping up, maybe a lot of work in that first year, maybe a lot of program dollars for individual customers to get them up to speed, but then over time, they kind of maintain and actually continually improve. Ideally, maybe they'll backslide some, but overall, you should see them generally get better and better at these things. So that's kind of the two main reasons, you guys, I would say, is that you would see a persistent SEM, a perpetual SEM kind of approach is where you're either addressing backsliding over time or continually improving, or doing both. So we asked people what their arguments for doing it, perpetual SEM were, and got some thoughts here. So one is, I use this analogy a lot for people, is the more mature you get, the more you realize you have to do. I know myself, the older I get, the more I realize I don't know. The higher level of an Olympic athlete is, the more they value a coach, right? Michael Jordan had a coach. He did his best basketball playing for Phil Jackson. Why? He was the same player before and afterwards, but Phil Jackson got more out of Michael Jordan. And so the point is, I guess, like getting these other insights, and the better you get, the more you realize you need help. Energy is never a top priority, and that's okay. That's okay. Or it's never top for most organizations. So that, in other words, it makes sense for us to do this. I would say something I haven't heard so much, but I think it's a very important point to call out, especially right now, is that energy management today is very different than what it was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, from my perspective, in most markets, it was kilowatt hours and therms. That's what it was, or it might have just only been kilowatt hours. Now it's kW, right? You're managing peak. You're trying to get renewables online, which may involve other types of dimensions. And as we're seeing with, again, the great news, greenhouse gases are going to be becoming a bigger thing, which are going to change energy management strategies in some ways fundamentally. I put here, organizations in their facilities are highly dynamic, with their priorities constantly shifting. They got turnover, they backslide in certain areas. They always value management consultants. Why not value SEM, right? The best organizations still bring in management consultants. Why shouldn't they consider doing the same type of thing for energy? Definitely keeping program administrators connected to their C&I customers, commercial industrial customers, is a very good thing. It keeps them connected very deeply. I would say if SEM erodes after 5 to 10 years, if you turn off your SEM, you ramp them up, you don't touch them for 5 years, they've eroded, then you come back to them 5 years later, it may be harder to restart some of these practices, or kind of reestablish yourself, reestablish the trust that the program has in that customer, and vice versa. I would say we talked about like the market adoption curve, where like deemed measures often kind of play a role and deemed incentives play a role, that those typically have a lifespan, and the technology kind of gets up to speed, but most custom programs don't have an expiration date, and like they continue to go. If there's opportunities out there, then it should continue, then that program continues to provide a service. And I think, again, in my mind, SEM is the most custom program there is, but yeah, again, much more in that kind of that latter camp. And then lastly, we talked about market transformation. Again, the aha in talking to Kim Crossman for me was that SEM market transformation is not about transforming customers, it's about transforming programs. As transforming utility or other agency programs to go from a deemed or just custom type of approach to actually having SEM be what they're trying to do. And that's what market transformation is. And which I would say, if that's the case, then the good news is with the uptick in programs, we're moving up that curve. We have some questions. And again, I compared this diagram to this one here, where I said there's lots of blue and not a lot of red. So this one, where there's a lot more red and a lot of blue. So a lot more agreement on these reasons to do SEM after the first program years. Incremental cost-effective savings. In some program studies I've seen where their savings in year 2 or even year 3 are greater than year 1. So by continuing to be involved with them and working with those customers, you're going to find not only some savings, even a lot of savings. So don't get out so quickly. And if you can do it, I said the cost effective is a key word here. If you can do it at a lighter touch, then your cost effectiveness should at least stay flat. Additional customer service satisfaction, again, for program administrators looking to stay involved with their customers, it is a great way to do it. Addressing deeper savings opportunities, as well as addressing harder SEM topics, these more advanced types of topics like executive engagement, other kinds of things. That these are, again, high value. They're things that customers need, and so you can these programs can play a role and provide value. A couple other thoughts from people from the survey respondents. I'll call out, this is a great Bill Miller question. Just seeing Bill's face. Does anyone believe that 1 year participation or practice is enough for a program participant to continue SEM indefinitely? Does anyone really believe that? And I would say in some places they may have a few years ago, but I think the general consensus is that that's, and Bill knows these people are, that's why he's rolling his eyes, that more people are starting to see the light, that this is not something, these are people, and they are, they're real, they've got other priorities, and that's okay. And again, there's value for the utility programs, I'm sorry, the SEM programs to connect, to continue to work with them. Again, these will all be slides provided to you in an inch at a time. I'm going to keep moving along. I mentioned the resources here. That industrial O&M persistence study, Katie Harper discussed this with us about a year ago in one of our webinars. It's a wonderful study. Please take a look. It's some very big ahas they came away with thinking about their measure life. And then related to that is this on the Northwest SEM Collaborative, this guide that they put together on EUL that has just some interesting links to it and interesting thoughts on how it brings it together. And so both are great resources. So we're gonna let's see. We'll go to then one more poll before we're going to talk about some other items here. What is one? If you go to Menti.com, here are the 8 digits. What is one perpetual SEM technique that you will implement going forward? We shared a ton of ideas, thoughts. Some that you brought to the table here in the webinar, some that were already. So what is one new thing you want to implement? You're not doing all these. I will say, while these are coming in, monthly meetings, that's great. Other ideas, people, yeah, share an idea. If you don't implement programs yourself, but you're excited about one of these things, you think it's a neat idea, what's the favorite one you're most excited about? Alumni network, customer directed SEM, promoting certifications. All these are coming in. I will say this last time, in the last webinar, we had a lot of chat comments, and we were able to take those and put those into the slide deck, and we'll plan to do that here as well. So these are wonderful, wonderful points we're seeing for people here. Let's see, external recognition, the breakfast of champions. It's just clever, smart. Nothing bad about breakfast of champions. It's just really great. Deeper relationships with the program administrator or PA. Executive engagement. Anti-backsliding. Yeah, let's not backslide. Let's keep it going. Recognition is becoming the winner so far of the word cloud? Okay, I'll let you keep on adding other thoughts. These are great. These are so many things. Nobody's done all these or is doing them all now. There's many things you can all do. So I want to leave you with some ideas, some motivation, things you can pilot and try out. We'll get back to our task at hand. This is the slide. It's always there. I won't describe it, all the things that the North American SEM Collaborative is trying to do, but we'll get into the SEM events. I mentioned in the survey I sent out, the email I sent out this last week, that through some scheduling and some other issues on my end, have not been good about getting you the dates and times for the upcoming webinars. Here they all are. You'll see these. You don't have to write these down right now because they'll be in the deck that comes to you. You can see those. Also, you can see the dates and times for the upcoming quarterly members roundtables. And then lastly, you can see the date and time for the SEM Summit. So dates and times for everything we got going on for the rest of the year. And so put holds in your calendar. We'll send meeting, if you have to register or so on for the webinar, those kinds of things, we'll send that information out closer to the events. So with that, we'll go to the quarterly member roundtables to describe that. The next one, the first one, is May 26th, 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And these do a lot of things we talked about before, but one key thing is they're members only. So if you haven't been contacted by a member of the leadership team, which includes folks like Walt and John and Wendy and Katie Dooley and many other wonderful and brilliant folks on the call, if you haven't been contacted by one of us yet, reach out to us and pick your favorite LT member and give them a shout and say, hey, how do I get involved as a member? We will be happy to connect you with information that you can pass along to your executive sponsor or whoever it is that would authorize you becoming your organization becoming a member. As a part of that, in the first quarterly member roundtable, which is a QMR, we're making a new acronym effective today. The QMR, in that we will be going deep on the SEM cost effectiveness research paper that many folks have been working on. John Nickel and Peter Bassett have been leading it from our end, but have been partnered in partnership with ACEEE, and then the lifting done by the LB&L team. And so for that, we have Peter Thurkelson from Lawrence Berkeley National Labs. Peter, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can. Thank you for joining
Awesome.
us. Here is the slide. Peter's gonna give us a little sneak peek of what will be covered at the QMR.
So thanks, Chad. Rewinding about a pandemic ago, LB&L and ACEEE, at the request of the leadership team and at the input of the membership of the collaborative, embarked on a journey and a research plan to investigate SEM cost effectiveness and persistence. And over this past year and a quarter or so, many of you have participated in fairly lengthy interviews. We've dug through a collective 80+ evaluation reports and other types of documents and cobbled together a quick read of 107 pages that we think is utter pure gold and is worth every tree it's printed on. And what we want to do now is, after going through rounds of revisions, pondering, thinking with the leadership team, the people who provided input through our interviews, and the other members of the 24 SEM programs that we spoke with, we want to start sharing the aha moments, the findings, the key takeaways, and the open-ended questions that this collaborative could decide to take on, and over the next period of months, years, lifespans, keep noodling on to ever more increase our understanding and accelerated uptake of SEM practices across our shared 2 countries. I have been told not to spill the beans, because this is supposed to like tease you to cough up the cash to be a member and then join the roundtable thingy. That's Chad's problem. But here are 4 bullet points quickly either to give you a quick takeaway or to entice you such to join up with the collaborative and join the roundtable. Reading quickly, because your eyes work as well as mine do, that yay, all SEM programs that responded to us are cost effective. That might be a little biased because they're responding to us. Cost effectiveness tests, inputs and assumptions differ utility to utility. Well, that kind of makes sense, but the problem is it makes comparing cost effectiveness of the different SEM programs challenging. The effective useful life, the all-powerful EUL, varies widely as well. And when you ask, hey, where'd that value come from? You don't get a lot of really reassuring answers, to put it bluntly. And then lastly, when you put all those together, well, SEM and this concept of continual improvement, we just talked about, well, does SEM programs, do they ever end? Well, a motor swap out ends, a boiler upgrade ends, a lighting project ends, and all of the cost effectiveness metrics that we are looking at were designed for those short intervention programs. Does the continual improvement in SEM program structure challenge those metrics? Do we need to ask ourselves some questions? Do we need to ask regulators some questions? Do we need to ask evaluators some questions? Is there something we can do about that, should do about it, or just acknowledge and move on? Did I tell him, Chad? Is that good?
Yeah, this is great.
Now the turkey drops the mic.
It's true. Nice job, turkey. Yeah, it was interesting. All too late last night, Peter and I were actually trading emails about this and realizing how much this webinar itself ties into the research and how this where this can all go. It's very exciting stuff. And I wanted to. There'll be many opportunities for John and John Nicol and Peter Bassett and Ed Ryder and others to acknowledge a lot of the hard work of LBNL to get this implemented, and for all the respondents and so on. So we'll be definitely going to that. Nice thumbs up from John. But definitely it's a lot of this is like what we do with this, and so and applying it. And so we've definitely and our leadership team have talked about how do program administrators, how do implementers, evaluators get some value out of this and take something away with it. And so definitely a key point or key part of the QMR will be like we're kind of downloading on this, having breakout rooms, talking about different aspects of the findings, and trying to move into action where people are going to, whether it's a probing conversation they want to have with their planning lead in their program, or if it's something else and they want to investigate something else. This should kind of lead you to take some type of action that's going to, in the long term, elevate what you do, the services you provide and bring to the customers. So very exciting stuff. Again, big lift by a lot of folks for a long time, but really looking forward to it being in your hands and you providing some great insights on how we use it. Thank you so much, Peter. Next, the SEM Summit, 5th annual SEM Summit. I can't believe this will be our 5th time. It's really it's really amazing. July 20th to 21st, 1 to 4 p.m. Eastern on both of those days. The information is on the, if you go to the ACEEE Industrial Summer Study website, then you can see the information there, and you can register for the summer study, which is the week before, as well as for the SEM Summit. And so that's where you go. There will be some great engaging formats, some amazing topics. And on that note, I'm going to flip over to the Call for Topics Survey Monkey. And one moment. Here we go. Okay, just to kind of step you through this. If you responded to our surveys before, this top part looks familiar, where you have to provide your information so we can not lose track of you. But we basically have in your space for people to suggest up to two topics per person. For those, we ask you to provide a name of what you would call this topic. You need to provide a description. It doesn't have to be an abstract that is a page long. It's just a paragraph. This is what we're trying to do. This is the need. This is why this would be compelling. Then I did want to spend a moment here just to describe what these different formats were. We're open to formats where we want to, I guess, find the right types of formats and the right balance of formats that will most engage you over the course of those 2 days. And so with that, we wanted to throw out some ideas that we wanted if you are proposing a topic, that you can say, yeah, I'm open to do it one of these ways or multiple ones of these ways. So I'll describe what these are really fast. This one is presentation as a part of a panel. So if we did a panel on a series of topics that were sort of related together, that each of those panel presentations would be roughly 15 to 20 minutes each, and then again together would maybe equal an hour or so. So if you said, yeah, this could be it's like a 15-minute presentation with 5 minutes of Q&A, that makes perfect sense. Next would be more like a featured presentation. You said, yeah, this would not be a breakout kind of a panel, but actually like this is a big deal, or I could get this one speaker to come speak to present this topic, and so this could be like a big kind of featured deal. Next would be customer presentation. So if you get a customer or customers you think would have some really interesting, compelling stories, then again, you could check that box and again, provide some information about that, about what customers they would be, what kind of stories you think would be compelling to our audience here. Rapid fire presentations, I was thinking of like mini TED Talks or something like that, but basically a very short thing. You said, yeah, I don't know if I could do 15 minutes in this topic, but you want to get in and out in 3 to 5 minutes, plant a seed, motivate someone, call them to action. I'm optimistic that people will jump on this and check this box so they could say, yeah, let's try a rapid fire presentation on something. I think someone like really creative, Dave Hall, someone like you that's like always got cool ideas, but many others. There's all of you. There's so many brilliant people that think would maybe jump on this. And then the last one is small breakout groups. So if you want to lead like a table topic, if you will, and you wanted to kind of facilitate that, we could then have like some breakout groups that may be less of a presentation and more of a topic that you wanted to kind of get people to work through or discuss together. That's not presenting, but more discussing. So that's these 5 basic ideas. I also put an other. So if you have some other kind of format that we hadn't thought of, that you said, hey, I want to do a virtual giant quiz game show thing. Great, put that on here and let's hear about it. And I will say too, you can check multiple boxes. Make sure to do that as well. You can do up to 2 topics. So this question here, so topic 1, you got a few questions. Topic 2, the exact same question. So assuming you'll have no more than 2 topics to suggest. And then lastly, if you don't have session topics that in your head that you want to run with or you want to develop, you can still propose ideas that you'd like to hear about. And so so this survey is for you as well. So here you can say, hey, do you want to request any session topics? We did have a question that was basically that in this survey for this here webinar, but you can then say, hey, what are the 3 issues you'd like to hear addressed? Put that on there too, which can help us then triangulate. So then Martin Lott could say, yeah, I really want to hear about X, Y, and Z. And Taylor then she'd proposed in her topics up here, we can see there's a supply and demand thing, and we could match make. Really straightforward. That's what it is. So I wanted to talk that through with you. If you have other ideas too, there's a place you can say anything else to consider, other suggestions or ideas. So that is it. I think, and back to the slides, your call for topics, they would be due in basically a month, Friday, May 21st. We'll chew on those for 2 weeks and then notify everyone on Friday, June 4th. So then you'll have then still a month and a half to prepare. Again, no papers to write, nothing like that, but more to kind of, if you need to organize and so on, then that's what you do in that time frame. That is what that is. And what is this? Oh, these were some of the SEM Summit topics of interest, I will say. So again, these will be sent out in this deck and you can take a look at these. But if that inspires you, again, I'll send these out. So before you submit your topics that you think would be really interesting to present, please take a look at this slide in the deck that I send out, because these came from you, from people that did respond to the survey. Some things here like effective EMIS implementation, or measuring avoided consumption for fuel switching to ensure maximum efficiency of the systems. Like all kinds of crazy and amazing cool topics that are here. And so that gives you some additional ideas. That is great. And then our last thing, we're at 12 noon. So we'll go to our, mentioned membership before, so be sure to talk to us. And then the thank you from everyone to all of you. And then our final Final question in the Mentimeter poll. What is one challenge or opportunity you want to dive into or into in the QMR in May? That is 2 words. Into, in the QMR. What is one challenge or opportunity you want to dive into? And if you're running up to your next meeting, thank you so much. For those who are sticking out to respond, wonderful too. Non-utility based SEM, that's cool, that's interesting. And while you respond to that, I will say thank you all. We've used a few different web platforms in our webinars the last year. I like this because I can see all your wonderful faces. And we didn't include the link to the Bobcat video. So I'm going to grab that and put that here as a closing thing. I think we put that in here. Chat. Here's your moment of bliss on YouTube. Is that link? See the crazy Bobcat attack, and then the guy's response to that. Thank you all so much. Have a lovely day and the rest of your week, and we'll talk to you all here soon.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Chad.
Thanks.